deck, and he's taking on James Buckingham, mono black aggro in the hands of James Buckingham. Both you and I high on this archetype, Craig. We like what it's able to do, but think it needs maybe a bit more help against the Golos decks. Don't have to worry about that right now. Playing against Simic midrange instead. And it's turn 1 Gutter Bones from James Buckingham.
Yeah, and just looking at this, I wonder if the mono black aggro deck is in an even worse spot here than it is against the Golos decks.
You got some fears about Oko, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, Oko is just such a mid-range killer, but a lot of the cards in Matt's deck are just very good mid-range killers. He gets a lot of value out of, 1-drops and 2-drops, and he does a little more on turns 3 and 4 than many of the Golos ramp decks do.
I also think that in a lot of ways this mono black deck really needs to leverage the triggered abilities on its creatures. Oko can, of course, negate those, just turn the creatures into 3/3s. Well, here's a second Gutter Bones from James Buckingham. A nice aggressive start here. I will say James's list not quite as grindy as some of the other ones we have seen. It's not doing the Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven, grindy type stuff. It's more focused on Outright Aggression. 4 Drill Bit, 2 Footlight Fiend, 4 Blacklance Paragon, not a card we've seen a huge amount of this weekend. But there you see the problem card, Craig. It's Oko. James, however, ready with the answer. Going to go ahead and Murderous Rider on Oko, eliminate that from the battlefield. Can't blame him.
And that's what you need to do, because if your plan is to attack down Oko,
not going to work.
It's just such a long path to get there. Maybe it'll work, but you're using so many resources along the way.
Absolutely. So Matt Nass with a Goose at the ready. How about a backup Oko?
Oh, man.
Seems pretty good to me. Going to ask James, do you have a backup Murderous Rider? James does, by the way. Just saw it in hand. Same play. Kill your Oko. Gutter Bones coming in again. These exchanges working out pretty well for James Buckingham as Matt Nass continues to lose valuable points of life.
Yeah, and the question is Nass going to have another big payoff card? Like a Nissa would be a problem this turn, right? The 3/3 body would just gum up both the Gutter Bones.
Right.
And give him the potential for very explosive turns after this.
Well, there's a 4th land. The Goose is at the ready. I don't think I see a Nissa, though. Nass does want to make 5 mana, but it's for a Hydroid Krasis for 3. Not the ideal number. Does get another card. Able to block those Gutter Bones, potentially.
Yeah, this is not what you want to be doing with Krasis, but it's still great on this board.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see if Buckingham can continue to force through damage here. Just going to swing with those Gutter Bones. One gets through, one gets blocked. Of course, option to rebuy.
Yep.
Instead, just going to deploy Ayara. Ping you for 1, gain a life, pass the turn back.
And Ayara, very powerful card, but I think between Okos, the Goose, being able to make food, and Krasis, that this Simic deck can just, really outpace the pings that it's going to face from Ayara.
I think it depends, Craig. I think it depends whether the engines are online. If Nissa's on the battlefield, it's very easy for the deck to go larger. But right now, it seems like Matt Nass is forced to play a more fair game of Magic. And in that instance, I like Ayara's chances of maybe just ending this game. And the turn is going to head back to James Buckingham. Have those Gutter Bones at the ready for rebuys. Can draw cards if you want with Ayara. A lot of value packed into that card. One of my favorite cards from Throne of Eldraine. It's just a fun Magic card to play. Asks you to be a little creative with your plays. Find lethal in cool spots.
Triple Black Elf. What's the deal with that?
Feels a little weird to me. There's been Black Elves for a long time, though.
There have.
Triple Black is intense, though.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Here's a Lazotep Reaver. That's going to trigger Ayara 2 times. bringing Matt Nass down to 6, Buckingham up to 19. It does trigger off tokens.
And these are good creatures to sacrifice to Yara for more gas.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Fill up the tank.
Buckingham with the option to rebuy those gutter bones from the graveyard if he chooses.
Yep, and has a couple of murderous riders sitting over there.
Looks like we're going to cash in this army, draw a card. I believe Castle Lochthwain was the draw.
All right, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Taps 3 mana. It's time for Murderous Rider to come back. 1 more damage. Buckingham to 20, Nass to 5. And if you're Nass, you have to be sweating right now. If there's a weakness of this deck, it's that without Oko, it's not very good at answering problematic permanents on the other side of the battlefield.
One, I think one of Nass's problems is that he just hasn't had a blue source this game. It's funny that we watched Golos all weekend, and they almost never have mana problems.
Right, with their 5-color nonsense.
Yeah. And we watched this 2-color deck, and there's just not that many dual lands that this deck wants to be playing, so sometimes they don't have the blue sources they need. He's had to sacrifice all of his food to the goose in order to generate the blue for his spells so far.
Yeah, Nass's list slanted particularly hard towards forest. 13 forests, 4 island, 4 breeding pool, 4 temple of mystery. Still 12 blue sources. This is certainly an aberration of a draw. Not to mention Paradise Druid, Gilded Goose. You generally don't struggle for your blue. And you generally don't need that much either.
Ooh, what are we doing? Little 4/4 Crassus?
I think so. I think it's time to gain a little life, draw a couple cards. So Nass going to go to 7.
All right, Matt, you've been in our feature match area all weekend. What's going on with the dice here?
Still hasn't figured out the dice.
Unbelievable, this guy.
Judge going to correct him.
He's just an anarchist, I think.
It's all those arena reps as a member of the MPL, always playing those matches on arenas. I've played a lot of fandoms where Matt Nass has participated, usually with a very crazy deck. So the turn is passed back to James Buckingham. A Yara on the battlefield. Now, if I'm Matt Nass, I'm worried. I don't know if I'm going to survive this turn.
It's funny that you say that because I feel like, a Yara was on the battlefield last turn, and now it's gone back and forth a turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Buckingham hasn't made that much progress because Matt was able to gain a couple of life from a Crassus, draw a couple of extra cards, got a 4/4 body on the field, and he's still sitting on a food token.
Well, that is true.
He doesn't have the mana to sacrifice the food token right now, which is significant. But it is a resource there that he can use in the future.
Yara can change things quickly, though. Here is Murderous Rider from Buckingham. I believe Nass with a Brazen Borrower in hand.
Yeah, I think he's been sitting on that one for most of the game because he's been so bottlenecked on blue mana.
We're calling this deck Simic Midrange. I think it has some real tempo elements to it. Because just all of a sudden you have this flying Sky Force out of nowhere. You look to end the game in just 2 or 3 attacks. That feels tempo-y to me more than it feels like midrange. But I guess it's capable of playing just a mid-range grindy game as well.
Yeah, we've seen games where, Matt's gone turn 1 or 2 mana creature, and then turn 3 it's either the wolf or the beast.
Yeah.
And he just starts getting real aggressive. I would call this deck Simic Rares and Mythic Rares.
Sure. Well, the fact that it has access to these multiple play patterns, it's one of the reasons why I think this to be the second best deck in Standard right now. I don't know if it's supposed to be Simic like Matt Nass is playing. I don't know if it's supposed to be a Bant-based build like we saw from Jess Stefan this weekend and what she played in the MPL. Both those approaches have their merits. Not sure which way the deck will ultimately lean. Well, here is a powerful play against this battlefield. Questing Beast. Again, playing into this just kill you out of nowhere plan.
Yeah, and I think this is important when you just bounce the Yara. Your opponent's got a very wide board. They've got a castle to draw more cards. Like, you need to flip the switch from off to on, right?
Yep.
Like, you need to figure out how to stabilize and then win the game.
Nass in the process of doing exactly that right now. Starting with these two attacks. Unblockable attacks.
Oh, Matt has this decision point where he's got a shock land and a basic in his hand.
And he can either make a food, have access to food sack, or play the tapped Shockland.
He could have it come to play tapped, or he could have it come to play untapped and play the fairy that's off on an adventure right now.
Interesting.
And when his plan is just kill his opponent as fast as possible, it's very tempting to just get another 3 points of flying on the board.
I hear you. Especially because it looks like Nass has 11 points of damage represented presently on the battlefield. Here's a Yara, though. That's going to change things as far as how much damage Nass needs to do. Buckingham up to 14, Nass down to 5.
Yeah, knowing a Yara's on the board and there's another Gutter Bones floating around in the graveyard, the opponent's not going to stay, on the life total that he was at to start the turn.
Well, I bring it up because I think Nass has a Questing Beast in hand. I'm not 100% sure about that, so I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. But if that's the case, then you have even more potential damage represented.
The Questing Beast is a legend, right?
Questing Beast is a legend. Thank you, Craig.
Yep.
Okay. Still getting used to these new cards.
Oh,
Give me
yeah.
a break.
One, it doesn't have... We're used to legends having proper names.
The Questing Beast.
Yeah.
Why isn't this the Questing Beast? Now I'm not even ashamed of my mistake. I'm mad that it's not the Questing
or
Beast.
Or someone's Nissa's Questing Beast.
Sure.
Yeah. The Royal Questing Beast.
I love them all. Anything to make me not look like an idiot. I know it's a challenging task. I understand that.
Well, we'll find a different way.
Right.
But this one will dodge in the future.
There will be a replacement. Rankle is the play for James Buckingham. That's going to do one more point of damage to Nass, gain one more point for James Buckingham. Have a result from our legacy match. Andrew Baeckstrom up a game against Austin Blackner in the Teamer Delver Mirror. Meanwhile, over in the modern match, Artifacts going at it. Urza Outcome versus Affinity. Seen some ginger brutes running around the top tables, Craig.
Yeah, we have. That's fun.
Get your ginger brutes now.
Can't catch him. Ooh.
Looks like it's time for attacks from James Buckingham.
I kind of like this. His board has gone wide enough where there's going to be some trades here, but he's going to force some chump blocks as well.
Yeah, I like this too.
Yep, that's the easy one.
I think you're pretty happy about that if
This
you're
one?
James Buckingham.
Ooh, okay.
I like that. Nice. Just give up the goose to Rankle. Yeah, get some more profitable blocks.
Still deciding.
Looks like he just wants to answer the Rankle problem now.
Yeah, Rankle's interesting. So, obviously, Rankle is a legend.
That one I knew.
But my point is, if there's a chance your opponent has a second Rankle, you almost don't want to kill this one, giving him a bunch of value out of it.
Right.
If you chump block it, the next turn he can't deploy another Rankle and get maximum value out of the card in his hand.
Nass really thinking through these blocks. Let's not forget that Gilded Goose represents a steady flow of food in the late game. Way to potentially pad the life total for Nass.
Yeah, I think the goose is actually very valuable.
I'm inclined to agree. Going to spend some mana here.
Modern challenge player William please report to the event stage. William.
So I'm assuming that was make food, sacrifice food?
Yep, 100%.
Yep. Now we'll deal with these blocks.
Lots of trades, take a little damage. Another card to think about here is the adventure card that raised deads.
Right. I'm blanking on the name of it as well right now.
Yeah, but if you get a murderous... Oh, no, the murderous rider dies, goes on the bottom.
It does.
Oh, there's too many interactions.
A lot of text on the cards. Could be used to rebuy a rankle, though.
Yes.
Well, I've got some bad news for you, Craig. That card is not in James Buckingham's deck.
He's not playing it. I should just pull up the list and have it in front of me here.
There is almost no way that Matt Nass knows that, though. So it is something he was likely considering. So look at the turn, just going to head back to James Buckingham here. Nass presently at 4. Access to food, potentially. That matters.
Yeah, he kept the goose around, and I think that was huge.
Those 2 gutter bones in the graveyard present such a problem as long as the Ciara is going to stay around.
Yes, definitely. And same thing, Nass not having that actual blue source of mana in play means he's not able to get the Brazen Borrow onto the board. That it could have traded, or it could have been pressuring the opponent for much of this game.
Sure. Buckingham draws a card here. I believe that's a Black Lance Paragon in hand. Possibly another Ayara.
Well, the Black Lance Paragon would be huge, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you could find a way to leverage that.
Yeah, once you send in the Murderous Rider, the Nass is definitely going to block it with something.
Basically has to. There comes Murderous Rider. Questing Beast hops in front. Black Lance Paragon, give my Murderous Rider Death Touch.
And the team is saying, don't
miss that point. Yeah. That's an important one.
Every little bit's going to matter here.
Yeah, Nass potentially falling to 3. In response, we're going to do some goose stuff. We want to keep that life total as safe as possible. Once this is all said and done, I believe Nass will be sitting at 6. Yep. Down a Questing Beast. And Buckingham going to gain a little bit of life from the Murderous Rider as well. That is going to trade, head to the bottom of the library. And now, Buckingham can buy back those gutter bones.
Yep, more triggers off of Yara.
Is going to do that. Buys 2 back, plays 2 of them. Nass takes some more damage here. Life total is now precarious. I mean, is it supposed to be at 4 right now, or are we missing some damage along the way? Or maybe we were missing a previous food.
I believe 4 is where we're supposed to be.
Okay.
We'll get a confirmation on that.
Yep. We'll make sure we have that right. And it sounds like Table Judge reporting 4 is the correct life total presently.
And we're seeing just how well the mono black deck can grind.
Yep.
You know, just a turn ago, there was only 2 creatures on the board, and now he's very wide again. Even though Matt's gained a whole boatload of life this game, he's still in jeopardy of just dying. Pretty impressive display out of this deck.
Yeah, the Gutterbones Ayara synergy is a real problem for Nass. Here is an additional questing beast. That's going to attack Buckingham. Still at a healthy 16 life, though.
It feels like he's taken 20 damage easily this game.
A fresh goose. And a tap land. And Nass is hellbent now. Does have access to some food. So at a virtual 7. Can Buckingham put together the pieces to end the game this turn?
Yeah, I think this turn is tough, but he still just has the, he can just attack with the Gutter Bones, let them die. He can sacrifice them to a Yara to start the chain. It just all works.
He's going to start with a Gutterbone sacrifice. Deploys a land. Pretty confident there's a Rankle in hand for Buckingham. Do have a result from our modern game. It's Josh McClain taking down game 1. That means the team of Baeckstrom, McClain, and Nass victorious in the other 2 matches thus far. Gutterbone's going to go ahead and attack.
And Nass saying, did I learn my lesson last time? He's in a position where he has to block the thing, right? He's got to block it, but what does he want to die if there's another Paragon?
Well, Paragon only giving Knights Death Touch.
Oh, sure.
Gutterbone's not a Knight.
100%.
Here's Rankle. That is going to do 1 point to Nass, gain 1 for Buckingham. That means Gutterbones able to be returned. Buys back them both, redeploys 1. That's going to move Nass to 2, Buckingham to 18. And I think that's going to be it for Buckingham on this turn. Hand of Yara, Gutterbones. That second Yara represents some real reach, though. Shock from the mono black deck. Not bad.
Sure.
Now, just to be clear, Craig, I do know that one is a legend.
It is a legend.
But when it comes into play,
2 triggers.
2 triggers.
Yep, 1 from each.
I know anything's possible when it comes to my understanding of these cards, but that one I actually checked out. Plus, it sounds like a legend, unlike stupid Questing Beast.
Stupid Questing Beast. Look at you. I wonder what Nass drew here.
Nothing much is my guess. Does have access to that Brazen Borrower.
I was going to say, it could be another Brazen Borrower. I would think if he drew a land, he would still play it.
Makes sense.
A lot of the cards that he draws, if he draws another Crassus, like he's just going to want all of the lands on the board.
Right. Step 1 from Buckingham, activate Ayara. Gonna eat the Gutterbones. Deploys a second, Castle Lochthwain. Hasn't even needed to get that going yet.
No.
Plenty of places to put his mana thus far.
But he wants to keep making land drops every turn, and he's been able to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now it's time for Blacklance Paragon to attack.
This one is a Knight.
This one is a Knight, correct. And it looks like Nass is going to go ahead and take the block with Questing Beast. Buckingham does have the Paragon. That's going to trigger a Yara. It's going to kill the Questing Beast. Gain Buckingham a little bit more life. Blacklance Paragon grants Death Touch and Lifelink, of course.
And really good stats for a 2-mana creature with Flash.
Yeah. And additional Gutterbones. It's going to do some damage. Nass says, this is the time I would like to go ahead and cash in some food.
Sure.
Nass getting a couple of goose going, though. That's just treading water, though. That's not actually getting anywhere. Here's the second Gutter Bones.
Yeah, and I wonder if he wanted to block that Paragon with... Oh, no, the Brazen Borrow... Too many texts. Too much text, right? The Brazen Borrow cannot block non-flyers.
It's got high flying.
High
correct.
flying, that, yeah.
Only blocks flying creatures. Can't quite make up that card in Nass's hand. Did draw an additional land this turn. I think it's a Paradise Druid.
Yeah, I believe it is a Paradise Druid.
There it is. And now Nass going to deploy that land.
Okay, so I believe he didn't play the Paradise Druid last turn because he wanted to use all of his mana.
And play Borrower.
Sacrificing food, making food, playing the Borrower.
Finally, Buckingham activating that Castle Locthwain. Going to draw an extra card.
Yeah, this game's been pretty absurd.
Yeah, Nass has done a good job treading water for quite some time now. That Ayara has generated a ton of resources, looked very threatening.
It's done a lot of damage.
Those geese, though, doing work, man.
Yeah.
Putting in a long shift are the Gilded Geese right now. Ooh, Priest of Forgotten Gods in Buckingham's hand. That's going to get out of control real quick on this battlefield. Lazotep Reaver. It's going to do 2 points of lifelinking damage, essentially.
And I think we're reaching that point. Nass had a couple of turns in there where he could have turned the corner if he'd drawn a big payoff card. But I think we've reached the point where Buckingham just has too much going on. He's got everything now.
All the engines are starting to get online. Ayara going to go ahead and get another card into Buckingham's hand. And this is the mono black aggro deck. How many extra cards has this deck drawn over the course of this game?
I mean, look at the number of lands he has in play.
Incredible. And still finding a use for that mana on every turn.
Oh, for sure.
Here is that Priest of the Forgotten Gods. And that card is frightening if you're on Matt Nass's side. More extra cards, more damage, more mana. All of that matters.
Yep.
And now it's time for a big attack. So that is not a legal block.
Yep, we'll stop that.
Matt realizes as much.
Yeah, Nass, I tried to do the same thing last turn.
Right. And Matt's been playing with that card all day. Week 1 of Standard's tough. There's a lot of new things to keep track of.
I like this attack. In the short term, it looks like Buckingham comes out on the bad side of it.
But he's eating up some of Nass's resources, and that makes Priests of Forgotten Gods all that much better.
Exactly. I think long term that James just has so many more cards to work with,
right,
that he's willing to pseudo 2-for-1 himself here just to kill a few things on the opposing side.
Yeah, basically all of his cards feel disposable at this point because he's so good at refreshing them, regenerating them. So Nass down a few creatures from that attack. I think an additional Rankle in hand for Buckingham as well, which only makes that attack that much better.
Yep.
Buckingham just going to pass the turn back to Nass. Nass using the opportunity to make some food.
All right, I'm on board for some food.
Always on board for some food.
Yeah, we know you're always
That's
on
how
board
I
for
live
some
my life,
food.
Greg.
Well, isn't that kind of how we all live our lives?
That's true. Yeah, and Nass finds us Forest off the top of the deck, says that's not going to be enough to let me pull out of this situation, and scoops them up. So James Buckingham up a game against Matt Nass. Mono black aggro over Simic mid-range. That was a really interesting game of Magic.
Yeah, it's funny seeing this, what we call mono black aggro, just putting people in the squeeze and just slowly choking them out of the game.
Yeah. Look at these clean sideboards from both these players. We'll start over on Matt Nass's side. You see 4 Shifting Ceratops, 3 Lovestruck Beast, 3 Aether Gust, 3 Veil of Summer, and 2 Mystical Dispute. I'm not seeing a ton I love here, Craig.
So the Veil of Summer, I think, is fairly interesting. You're already looking at Murderous Riders coming out of the other side, and you know they're going to have some sideboard cards that are going to come in as well. There's also Drill Bit, which is a card to consider. And I wonder if you want Lovestruck Beast as well, just generating the 1/1 early and then having a 5/5 body to protect the ground can be, just a formidable defense against this deck.
Meanwhile, over on Buckingham's side, we were looking at 4 Noxious Grasp. That card seems pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
3 Legion's End, 3 Ashiok Dream Render, 3 Davriel Rogue Shadow Mage, and 2 Duress. What do you want to do if you're Buckingham?
You said these are clean sideboards. I want the 4 Noxious Grasp, and I think I just stop right there.
Okay.
I mean, there's some argument for Duress. The Planeswalkers are super important in this matchup. But every time you add a spell into your deck, an instant or sorcery, that is just another black creature that's not in your deck anymore. And I think it's important to have that, threshold of black creatures to have all your pieces come together.
I think Legion's End is interesting as well. I don't know that I would go as far as including it, but there's a lot of juicy targets. Probably still passing, though. I think your point stands that you just need to make sure you stick to your aggressive game plan. I think, though, we want to hop over to another match. As interesting as the standard has been, I'm getting the sense that another match might actually determine the victors here, and I'd rather catch that if we can. So let's see if we can get it set up for some action elsewhere. Here we see a match of Legacy fairly far along. On the right-hand side, you see Austin Blackner. This is a Teamer Delver Mirror. Baeckstrom had a precarious life total here. Unless those are switched, we'll make sure this is all correct. We'll get complete clarity of what's happening here.
This looks like it's been a super interesting game.
A long one, to be sure.
Yeah, there's submerges in both graveyards. There's a bunch of creatures on the battlefield.
All right, I think we have our life totals updated now. Baeckstrom at 13, Austin Blackner at 7. 2 Tarmogoyfs on the battlefield for Blackner. Baeckstrom's squad a little bit more diverse. Hooting Mandrills, Delver of Secrets, Tarmogoyf. All kinds of resources expended thus far. 2 cards in hand for Blackner. It's the 3rd Tarmogoyf. And these Tarmogoyf, they have keyword big right now. 5/6. Making those Hooting Mandrills look pretty inferior.
They are, but Blackner's in this weird spot where, he can't really attack.
Right.
So his attacks involve sending multiple Goyfs into the red zone, right? Like, you can't attack with one, the opponent gets to block with a Goyf and a Mandrill, and then the Mandrill just trades with the lure Goyf.
Right.
So you got to send in multiple in order to gain some sort of advantage.
Well, finding that 3rd Tarmogoyf goes some ways towards accomplishing that. Also, crucially, Delver of Secrets did not flip for Baeckstrom.
But Blackner's life total is low enough that he doesn't want to commit too much to attacking.
Right, just die on the alpha swing back.
Yeah, just die on the way back.
Here's a Delver of Secrets from Blackner. And a land. Looks like Wooded Foothills out of hand. Oh, but there's a flip for the Delver.
And that's an important one.
Yeah, that means Baeckstrom gets to claim offense a little bit more quickly. Delver is going to attack. Probably should draw that Spell Snare. There we go.
A card every turn.
Was that uninterested in the Spell Snare, just wanted to leave it there. This is a crucial flip for Blackner. Gets it. Spell Snare as well.
Look at these guys.
And still Blackner with no good attacks, just going to pass the turn back to Baeckstrom. Baeckstrom draws a 2nd Delver of Secrets. That means it's time to put your opponent in the grinder. Submerge. We know what that card is, Austin. That's a Spell Snare. Not going to counter that Submerge. And here comes that Delver. Blackner falls to 1, and that is going to get a handshake, and that means Baeckstrom takes down this match 2-0. That's not quite the whole match yet. I think we're going to hop over to Modern, where we catch Josh McClain taking on Sean Blough.
Oh.
And McClain has some permanence on the battlefield.
Yeah, we stepped into a mess here, huh?
You don't like to see that as the Affinity player. A third Vault Scourge coming down. We will get these life totals updated for you.
Yeah, it looks like McClain's got a lot of permanence on the board, but no payoff yet. But one paradoxical outcome is just going to close this game.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this deck, it gets paid off in a hurry. I'll say that.
Yep.
It doesn't take a whole lot for this deck to just go bananas.
Oh, and McClain still has 1 million cards in his hands.
There's a good chance we wandered in on the key turn. I think I just saw a Psy drawn.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. Ever-flowing Chalice at the ready. Maybe a paradoxical outcome in hand as well. Yup. Oh boy.
Is that a Mox Amber that was tapped there?
It was, and
Okay, it looks like they caught it, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he thought he was tapping the Opal.
Now you can use that Amber with Psy on the battlefield. Well, McClain can cast Paradoxical Outcome if he chooses. Going to go ahead and shock here. And I believe life totals are correct presently. And that means I really like a Paradoxical Outcome turn here. Yeah, going to tap that Mox Amber for mana.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where there's just no bad decisions, right? Like every road leads to Rome, as they say.
I think you're exactly right. And this Paradoxical Outcome going to return 7 artifacts to hand, I believe. Draw 7 cards. All of those able to be redeployed.
Most of them tapping for mana.
Scary times here for the Affinity player.
Yeah, and the number of Thopters we're going to see this turn is just going to be absurd.
All right, there you see Paradoxical Outcome. This is the new look for these Urza players. This powerful combo really showed up today. From just being absent from the metagame to being tied for the most played deck. Pretty impressive.
I like the the team effort.
Yeah, nice
here.
assist here. Rapid fire Nick Miller tokens entering the battlefield. Let me tell you my experience with this deck, Craig. Someone in my Discord mentioned the deck, said they just queued up against someone. This was a long time ago. This is going back even before Throne of Eldraine. Said they just queued up against someone in a Modern League playing Paradoxical Outcome Urza. I stopped. I thought about it. I went to StarCityGames.com. I ordered 4 foil Paradoxical Outcomes on the spot. The synergy is just so spot on. It made so much sense to me immediately. And a lot of the folks who have been working really hard on this deck, Matt Nass is one of them, for sure. Also a couple guys in my Discord, Kane Reinhardt, Tangrams. Tangrams, I always forget your real name. I'm sorry. He goes by Tangrams in our Discord. They've been grinding out results and starting to make this deck into the beast that you see before you. And I think this is a real player in the Modern metagame. Kane Reinhardt was doing very well in the Modern Classic, playing a version of this deck with Jeskai Ascendancy in it. He thinks that's the truth.
Sure.
Josh McClain not there yet, still just relying on Urza and Paradoxical Outcome.
Yeah, we talked yesterday a little bit about how these decks, you know, it seems like a great idea, and they start with 1 Mox Amber. And then people are like, hey, this is so good when I draw it. Let's play 2 Mox Amber. And then they're like, hey, wait a second. Let's just play all 4 Mox Amber.
Right.
It's too bonkers when you have it.
Well, it was Emery entering the deck that really necessitated the hard shift into Mox Amber.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. But it's just funny how when we first see these decks and we're very impressed by them, we're kind of blown away, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, it's going to get better. Just give it another couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah, I would say even from this point, this deck is going to find more refined forms. Urza was the draw for Josh McClain. You think that's any good here?
Oh, mama.
That might be decent. Oh, just Urza.
Yeah.
That is going to do it for Sean. He has seen enough. Going to go ahead and pick them up. And that means the team of Baeckstrom, McClain, and Nass in extremely strong position to make our top 8. I never make guarantees except when I forget and accidentally do it. I didn't forget this time. They're in very strong position for a top 8.
Yeah, I think they're going to be our 7th or 8th seed here.
That is my guess as well. Still some matches to sort out before we know exactly what's going to comprise our top 8. But that was good, clean Magic that round. I enjoyed everything we saw. We got a little bit of Legacy, a little bit of Modern. We saw a great Game 1 of Standard.
That Standard was a grind fest. Mm-hmm. These mono black decks, I don't think they're on the same level as Golos. But we see against some of the other decks, they'll just grind all day.
Mm-hmm. They absolutely will.
Pretty impressive.
I agree. It looks like Matt Nass may be our only non-Golos representative in the top 8. We will keep an eye on that story. We'll check it out once we have our full top 8 together. The other thing that's going to happen once we get our full top 8 together is y'all can vote on what our top 8 match is going to be. If you are a subscriber to the SCG Tour channel, you do have the ability to vote on what the quarterfinal match will be. So let us know what Craig and I are going to come back and commentate on. We always like... What would you say our preferences lie, Craig? I mean, I know you just love Golos Mirrors. You're begging for Golos Mirrors. You would love to see that all day.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want that?
There you go. Sign Craig up for another Golos Mirror.
But generally, the fans do a great job. They end up on a good match. We always have a blast. The top 8 matches, a lot of tension there. It's fun.
Yeah, I love our top 8. I'm always pumped for it. We're going to take a brief break. We're going to get all of our brackets together. We're going to get all of the cool feature match graphics, the players staring each other down head-to-head. We're going to do that nonsense. Give us about 40 minutes, 45 minutes in that range. We'll put it all together, and then we'll come back with some top 8 action here from SCG Philadelphia.